Hello, everybody, and welcome to Take Your Time, a Persona podcast where we play through Persona 3 Reload in real time, along with the in-game calendar dates. My name is Tom Marks, joined as always by Jonathon Dornbush.
Tom.
Yeah.
It's spooky season yet again, and I'm ready.
October already.
I know. Can you believe it? That crazy July, August, September 4-month time jump in the game. Incredible. But here we are.
Yeah, things get quite spooky this week, and then hilariously goofy when you learn what the real ghost is. It's obviously the days of June 2nd through the 8th. We've got essentially a full free week-ish. It's the first half of the week is hunting for ghost rumors, or not, I guess, if you choose to not. And then the second week is following up on those ghost rumors. Second half of the week is following up on those ghost rumors, and then finally the full moon at the end. Which, spoilers, just for later in the episode, I really enjoyed. I enjoyed it a lot more than the first full moon, and I'm excited to talk about it. I'm excited to talk about why.
Yeah, without spoiling it, I think it is a much more impactful full moon, even if it is arguably a smaller scale full moon thing.
Yes. Yeah. That's fair. That's a fair way to represent it. But before we get all to that, let's, of course, we want to do our confidant call out to all of our Patreon members who are at the Palace tier, Ruler tier. We really, really appreciate the support as always. And so calling y'all out. Akechi is a Jelly Bean, Astral Clock Tower, Cameron C, Dallas, Damon, Dan F, Danimal Lover 01, Default Titus, Dexter, Goro Akechi, Keegan H, Michael V, Philip S, Programmer Sid, Sam K, Sarah M, Shade, Willie Wang Wang, and Zachary L. Thank you to all those folk. And if you would like to support us on Patreon, patreon.com/takeyourtime is where you can do it. As a reminder, for people at the Palace Ruler tier, which is the highest one, and then the middle one, which is the Member of Seas tier, we just put out our second bonus episode. We do those monthly. They're just added little things. We let the community, the Patreon community, vote on what they would like us to talk about each month, and this month we went over our wish list items for Persona 6 as voted on by the community, which was fun. So obviously you don't have to support. We love you being here. We love you, joining in the comments and doing all that, and we're happy to have you regardless. But if you are looking to do that, take your time, or patreon.com/takeyourtime. I got it right.
Yeah, it's fine. And if I'll ADR it in. And if you're listening to this years in the future, just find me on social, and I'll send you my Venmo, and you can send us some money. But no, thank you to everyone out there for support. It was really, for what it's worth, a lot of awesome, wonderful reactions for that Persona 6 wishlist episode, and a lot of people being very, throwing in their own ideas, talking about our ideas. So really great to see all that. So thank you to everyone.
A little more housekeeping. We do have the pop quiz answer, but before we get to that, last week on the show, I put out this question about Bebe and the way he speaks, and about how he adds these Japanese words in the English version, and how I'd love to know what that is like in the Japanese version. And Jonathan, we actually got a comment of somebody pretty thoroughly explaining exactly that. Is that right?
We did. Mark on YouTube wrote in with this, and I wanted to include it because it's very well detailed. I'm mostly taking it on faith because I do not know the Japanese language well. So if anyone else out there then pops up and says, all of this is incorrect, I'm not going to start a war on these things, but it seems pretty well researched, and I do really appreciate it. So Mark wrote in with this little breakdown and said, hey guys, I just finished playing through Persona 3 Reload in Japanese, and I can help answer your question about how Bebe talks in the original version. In short, they're accented and used a lot of words that the samurai used to use. I'm going to really butcher pronunciations here. I apologize. To give you an example of what I mean, a common word for I in Japanese is watashi. Bebe uses the samurai version of I in Japanese, which is sesha. There are a lot of other examples too, like him saying degozaru instead of desu for the verb to be. It's not wrong, but it is quite strange. It's the equivalent of meeting an English learner who uses a lot of medieval phrases mid-conversation, saying words like thou instead of you. Huh. You mean a milady sort of guy. I get what you mean there.
No, don't make Bebe that. I don't want that in my head.
No, he doesn't have that vibe. The strangest part is that it's quite difficult to talk like this, so it makes me wonder, how did Bebe learn Japanese? They also use a lot of katakana characters in his text box, which is the Japanese script used for foreign loan words. It gives the nuance of someone talking but not pronouncing it 100% correctly. Hope this helps. Love the show. Which, yeah, thank you, Mark. That's a really great, I think, very understandable explanation.
Yeah, and it's also a really good example. We don't have to get too much into this because localization is a whole big topic, with lots of nuance and weirdness to it. But it is a really good example of just a thing that wouldn't work if you translated it directly, right? If you had Bebe saying thou or, whatever, something closer to what it sounds like the Japanese version of his speech pattern is, then you'd just be confused, right? Whereas this I think sounds like an interesting sort of different way to express that he loves kind of traditional Japanese culture, right?
But yes, I think it would be very weird if he was speaking Shakespearean-esque language the whole time.
Right.
So totally makes sense. And again, to your
speaking
point,
in Shakespearean language while talking about how much he loves Japan.
Yes, exactly. It just wouldn't make sense. So I totally get it. And to your point, it is such a lengthy conversation we could get into, but I truly think it's again, one of those things where when a localization is great, you tend not to really notice because it is so great that it really effectively communicates that stuff. But a lot of work goes into making that stuff feel appropriate in the moment.
Totally.
Yeah.
Well, cool.
But thank you.
Thank you so much, Mark, for writing in. Let's do the pop quiz real quick before we move on to the actual days. Jonathan, the question, if you remember, was that you can talk to a pubescent student, was his name, pubescent student, in your classroom during last week and I think a little bit of this week. So people might have been able to go back and see it if they're playing in real time along with us. But someone says that if a guy tried something funny with Kirijo, X thing would happen. And I found it fascinating because we don't know a ton about Kirijo yet, and it sort of gave a little bit away. So you said we didn't have any answers for this yet.
Not that I saw.
As of time of recording.
Yeah. We're recording a little early this week.
Yeah. But what's your guess here?
So mine, I don't have an exact one, and altruistically, I did not go back and try to suss this one out. I had written down that it was basically they'll get injured in some way, like Kirijo will beat them up, is kind of where my line of thinking was. I didn't have anything exact.
So you're close, but there's a subtlety to it that I think was what caught my eye.
Gotcha.
Which is specifically he says that if somebody tries something funny with Kirijo, her bodyguards will break their neck. And specifically, I thought that was really interesting because it tells us that something that I'm starting to piece together a little bit about her character, but is still very early, is that she's kind of rich and famous, is sort of the vibe. We didn't get into it, but the note you get at the end of Tartarus, this section of Tartarus mentions her surname, right, is in that note. So somehow there's her family has ties that are tied into a bigger part of this. And, there's also this thing with this week, which we'll get into later, of her talking down a teacher at the school and this teacher basically just rolling over and not challenging her, right? Specifically her bodyguards was there's still more to this character that other people at the school already sort of know about her that we have not been fully clued into yet.
These characters have some layers, man. I can't wait till we get further in. It's one of those things where, we've also gotten hints of the Kirijo group has been mentioned.
Yes.
There's one element of that I am forgetting if it's been mentioned yet, so I'm just going to withhold that bit of info just to be safe. But yeah, you're along the right line of thinking, I think, that clearly there is more to her background that seems important for her character.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also, so, how else did she get that rad bicycle? She's got to have some cash.
I just sort of, I don't know. And she's got a really good fashion sense. Not that anybody has bad fashion sense in this game so far, but she's dressed nicely on the days off, right? There's a high class vibe coming from her for sure. Anyway, let's jump into the week. Talk about some of those things I just teased and mentioned. June 2nd, just free time. This was a pretty standard day. The thing that we established, if you forgot on June 1st, was, hey, there's all these ghost stories and rumors going on about this girl that fainted or whatever. As we learned this week, these girls who fainted. So let's go out and do some research. And we don't get into this every day, but there's this really interesting thing where that happened on a Monday, and you say, we'll meet back on Friday and discuss what we've found. And there's no game mechanic this week to actually, like, I was expecting cutscenes or something to make you go do research. There's no actual structure to this. You just go out and talk to people in the way that is very amusing to already do. It literally just, it gamifies a thing that is sort of a side thing that's just been fun from before, and it has you go talk to these people and learn rumors and hear what the whispers are. And then as you learn later on in the week, if you have done your research well, actually, you get a little reward for it. It's a paltry reward, and we'll talk to that when we get there, but you do get a little reward for actually having gone out and done the legwork, which you could fully just not do.
Yeah, it's I kind of love that because it does. I think this game does a really interesting thing of all of the story and lore and character information is important, but there are obviously different tiers of importance to what matters for your, like, arguably main story, and then as you further go out. But that's just true of life and true of stories. And I kind of like that it is really as much as you want to dig into this, go ahead. And this is a really good prime example of, this is a thing that your characters have said is important to them for this week. Except for Junpei. Junpei doesn't care. And you can take that route. You can ignore going around the school, talking to people, getting info, and just go about your daily stuff. Or you can try to talk to every single person and maybe get some info. And then, as you said, it's not the best reward, but it just gets you into that habit of, okay, maybe I do need to really keep checking around this place.
Well, yeah, and that's exactly what I like about it, is that it adds actual sort of impetus or stakes or whatever you want to call it to going around and doing this completely optional thing that is usually just flavor. And here it is still essentially just flavor. There's not really a huge incentive to do it, even when you know what you'll get, even if you knew you were getting a prize or whatever. But at the same time, it is adding importance to a thing that was completely ignorable up until this point that you shouldn't ignore. Because as you've talked about on this show a lot, you know, these conversations are great and they develop over time. And so I like that checking in with those people has been folded into the main story a little bit in some way. That's nice to me.
No, absolutely. And like you said, it doesn't change, I think, the revelations of where that story leads, but it adds flavor to it. It gives more context and makes you feel more involved.
And if there was, I think Persona 5 had some stuff like this, and I've definitely played it in other RPGs, where they're like, here's a quest where to progress you have to go and talk to 6 villagers around the town, and they're just boring, right? If it had made this required, it wouldn't have been fun, but actually going out and just doing the research yourself because you want to makes it fun.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It creates a level of interest for you as a player that wouldn't be there if it felt forced or required. Yeah, I really enjoy it. We'll get to where it all leads as the week goes on, but yeah, for now it's a free day.
Yeah, let's get into the actual second. Yukari talks to you in the morning about some of the stuff we just talked about, and then immediately you get a lecture about ghost stories and ghosts, right? And I stayed awake during that. I don't know about you.
Of course.
And then we get free time today. It's pretty standard free time, morning and night. What did you do?
I hung out with Kenji.
Hey.
I'm seeing this one through as quickly as I can, so I hit rank 7 with him today.
Okay, so I hung out with Kenji as well, and I only hit rank 5. Okay. So I'm a ways behind you, but we're getting there.
It's 2 days. You'll make it up.
I have a direction where not where I think this is going, but where I really hope it's going. It's a little spoilery though, so I won't dig into it too much. I really hope that he is as oblivious overall, like long term, as he seems right now.
Gotcha. I get what you mean.
That way.
We'll find out soon. I have a feeling we'll be able to dig into this one, if not next week, probably the week after at the latest.
Yeah, next couple weeks.
It'll happen pretty soon. But yeah, easy day.
Cool.
Yeah.
In the evening, the health sandals arrive, which are the shopping network thing. If you got them, some pretty good, just stat sandals, right? I think that they negate poison, which is unique-ish. It's fine. That night, it was Tuesday, and I saw on my little thing that I could go hang out with Tanaka, but I could not. And we looked it up. So I realized I can't quite do that. So I'm champing at the bit for it, but I can't quite do that.
A little on me, and I guess slightly spoilerish. I forgot about this, but shout out to Francis on the Patreon who did write in. Just to mention, Tanaka is locked behind another social link. Specifically, I guess again, if you don't want to know exactly, skip 15 seconds. It's rank 3 with Maya, and I do believe you need like a high charm ranking to actually properly do the social link.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we'll get there when we get there. I just like the idea of having social links in the evening so that I can do a little bit more of that. Yeah.
No, it helps add some variety for sure.
Cool. So I just worked at the cafe because it was urgent.
Me too.
Samesies day.
Easy.
We need a term for that.
I know. Please out there, give us a name. I'm too tired right now for a name, so please give me a name.
Let's just jump to the 3rd then. So the morning of the 3rd, you run into Junpei in front of the school. He basically says, hey, have you actually been looking for clues? And can tell you haven't, I guess. Probably projecting there a little bit. But what'd you do during the day? This is just a really standard free day.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. Because you had mentioned you were hanging out with them a bit and didn't want to fall too behind, I hung out with Yuko for rank 3.
Nice. So I hung out with Yuko for rank 4. So we are still, again, sort of going after similar people, but that's good, right? We want to, we don't want to rigidly choose what we're doing, but it's nice to try to complete some of those towards the same time.
Yeah, keeping it in the wheelhouse, spoilers, there will be more social links, so it's one of those, like, while we have the time with them, let me focus on them is kind of where my head's at.
Yeah, and the Yuko, I'm still really liking Yuko. She's just got, her story especially as that I'm getting into is really just very heartwarming, or at least this one was.
Yeah, Yuko's great. I don't want to say too much, but she's one of my favorite, I think, of the, like, non-party characters that you meet in this early run.
We haven't talked about dating yet much, because we haven't gotten deep into dating, but I'm already like, man, maybe I just already found who I want to date.
I felt the same way very early on. I was like, who's going to be better than Yuko right now? Like, Yuko is just, there's something warm about her character.
Yeah.
That I think is really, yeah, it's very weird to be like, yeah, I just instantly found a compatibility with this fictional character. But no, I do think they set her up in a way that makes her feel very just like a kind, considerate character who like genuinely cares about Makoto, the player character.
Well, that's the other thing is that I'm trying to think, Chihiro and her are the only two student, like our age social links that we have right now who are women, I think.
Yes, yeah.
Because there's Maiko, but she's younger, and there's Maya, who's probably a catfish in her 40s, so we don't know those people really. So yeah, and it's interesting to me so far. Already I am noticing both Chihiro and Yuko's ranks are very angled towards, hey, you're dating right now. You know what I mean? Like they're much more explicitly romantic, or at least sort of meet cute hinting at that. With characters being like, "Is that your boyfriend?" And then one of you being like, "Oh no, what are you talking about?" Like getting flustered and all cute about it. So it's a little bit more, especially compared to, again, not to compare everything to P5, but especially compared to P5, which a lot of those confidant ranks play it really straight until rank 10, and then suddenly you're in love.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of preceding with the two of them of like, oh, this could go in a romantic way, which again, we can talk about large scale as we get there. It is one of those funny things where I don't want to dig in too much because I know we have a lot of story stuff to get to, but I do think it's an interesting thing for us to talk about that. Again, also what you're seeing so far is, despite them being your party, you have the party overall social link, but you do not have individual social links with the rest of your party right now. And so it does put you in that mindset, especially of that is your focus in P5. It is, I'm thinking about all the friendships and romantic like entanglements that come with these side characters a little bit more as a result.
Totally.
Yeah.
So anyway. You got her up to rank 3. I got up to rank 4. Evening. I did the last CD software thing that I didn't have completed. So I've done all of those now, which was for Charm. It was the Etiquette CD.
Nice. I think I've done most that I have. Yeah, I might have 1 or 2 left. Since I did not last week, did my Tartarus run. Just
nice.
Crammed it all into one night this time, whereas I know last time I spent a few nights, but I was like, let me just get through it here. See what I can do. I was making good progress, so I just kept at it. Used a fair few items, honestly, but I had a pretty good stock, so I just kept going. The only thing that I want to mention from that, because I think we covered it pretty well last week, the only thing that I wanted to mention that I think is interesting, especially in light of this week, is Akihiko mentions Mitsuru's persona isn't actually recon focused at one point. And you have this beat where like she's having trouble reaching you at one point and is able to reconnect a bit. And then he mentions like, oh, well, that's not technically what her persona like is specialized in, but she's fulfilling that role right now because we need it. And obviously with where this week goes, it's not spoilery to say at this point, but I do think it's an interesting preceding because you could have gotten that a couple weeks ago and not really had a second thought.
Yeah, there's a lot of talk in this Tartarus and then in the Full Moon run about her ability reaching its limits, right? Reaching its max range, basically, and cutting out a little bit. And I'm interested to see how that develops and how the team is going to handle that going forward, basically.
We shall see. But yeah, that was my evening.
Okay, so moving on to June 4th. June 4th, Yukari, you talk to her outside the school in the morning, and she mentions that she's having nightmares from researching ghost stories so much, which is very sad.
I just was going to say, I think it's, especially in light of talking about the other social links we have right now, I really, as quick as they are, treasure these small moments you get with your team because I can't go hang out with them after school unless there is a designated thing. So for me, I really, not that I like read into it, but I really value any little bit of character that I get to understand about Yukari, Mitsuru, Junpei, etc. And like to your point, even then getting something from the pubescent boy or the Kirijo superfan about them to just keep coloring in the picture of who they are is really beneficial and interesting to me at this point.
Kirijo superfan, speaking of this week, goes from superfan to full-on wanting to date her, which is, I wasn't expecting. They kind of were playing her as just like just normal sort of fangirl, and then it became like, I hear she likes smart men or something like that, and then she's like, maybe if I get really smart, she'll accept me even though I'm a girl, and you're like, whoa, okay, that's all right. I didn't realize that was where this was going, but sure.
Well, and we know that for a fact because you and I are Mitsuru's special smart little boys who get all the treats at the end of midterms. Yeah,
the superfan is a fun character. I like that one a lot. There's a lot of I really like the stalking boy and girl, right?
Oh, that back and
that
forth.
Little dynamic of him fully knowing she's there and being like, I don't know how much this, like, she's really persistent and like not really minding it, but sort of minding it.
And I always love that it's like sometimes she'll be a little further away and sometimes they'll be like really close and it's like, you are not being subtle about this whatsoever.
Yeah.
There's nothing here to convey secrecy, but good on you for trying.
So what'd you do today?
I opened my phone because it shut off, and then I hung out with Kenji again to get him to rank 8.
So I have a bone to pick with you. You mentioned previously that the ranks for this game are pretty, as long as you're answering right, you kind of never really have to do the hangout things. It sort of always just flows right into one. You have the persona. And so either you have lied to me, or I'm terrible at this game. And we started looking up, we started doing the thing I do for tests, where my wife will look up the answers and I'll give my guess, and then she'll be like, nah. And I think the answer is I'm bad at this game. Because I don't have Kenji, I don't have Miyamoto, I don't, like, just so many people I hang out with who are just not available for a rank up almost immediately after. And I'm like, Jonathan is either messing with me, or I just really don't know how to answer these people.
So I don't think I was lying to you, but I do think there are cases where it is incorrect. When it comes to Kenji, because especially this is my second time, just in a sense of not wanting to waste time, I'm doing a very similar method as you, where like I'll think I know the answer and then check it and then pick the right answer, just because I don't want to waste too much time on this playthrough.
Yeah.
I have never had to do a second in between hangout with Kenji to get to the next rank. Maybe I did very early on for like 1 through 3, but for this stretch, this week and last week, I have just always been able to get to the next one. So you were just a bad friend to the weird kid.
I'm just don't want to tell him the terrible things.
You know, I have that same struggle where I'm like, I don't want to press this answer, but it's going to get me the most points. And so I'm breaking my morals here.
It's just so hard to know sometimes. It's just like the answer that you can pick are like one of the ones for Yuko this week for me was ... hey. And it's like, what is the specific intent there? Is that, dismissive? Is that sheepish? I don't know. I don't know. I don't know how you'll react.
Is it Miles in Spider-Verse putting his hand on Gwen's shoulder and going, hey, yeah.
Yeah,
is it that?
Any one of those. Anyway,
I will say
I'm going to start lightly cheating is my point.
That's fair. That's fine. I will say it did happen with me with Maya, where I just needed to hang out with Maya one time and I didn't get an upgrade, even though I thought I was picking all the right answers. So I don't know if I missed one there or if there were points there. So I cannot say it is unequivocally true, but it is true for at least some of these characters.
I would bet it's true most of the time and not all of the time. I wouldn't be surprised if that's the case.
Yeah.
Anyway, moving on to the evening. Or did I say what I did? I hung out with Chihiro again.
Okay. Cool.
And I got her up to rank 3.
Nice.
In the evening, tomatoes are grown, which is fun.
Yeah.
Because we all had to do that at the same time. And then I planted potatoes, which I had gone out and bought, and are going to be done growing on the exact same day that the fridge gets cleaned out finally for some reason. So that's nice and convenient.
I planted tomatoes again, just because I had a weird thing with this day where since I went to Tartarus last night, I played this day once, got through the evening and went, damn it, I forgot to go to our good doctor friend and get a potion. So I reset it, but during that original play, I had bought potatoes. In my second playthrough, I had forgotten to buy potatoes, but only realized that 2 days later. And at that point, I was like, it's fine. I'll just plant later on. It's cool.
I just want to know what potatoes do.
Yeah, it's worth it.
I also noticed Mutatsu on the network social links thing that I don't have any clue who that person is. So I really like that. I feel like I didn't get that with P5 where, you and I joke about how we do the same day a lot of the time because there's a little bit of, some decisions are a little more on rails, but also I feel like you can wildly branch off. I've mentioned this before, but it does feel like you can really branch off with social links quickly, which is cool.
Oh yeah, I think Suemitsu is a very clear, good example of that, where clearly he was unlocked at least a full week before you or me were able to get to him. And yeah, similarly, that'll happen with that character as well. And then even with Tanaka, of course, like you had missed him. There's good and bad to it. I agree with you that it's cool that there are these opportunities to learn about the game and branch in that way. I wish some of it was maybe a little more signposted, but for the most part, I think it works.
Sure. What did you do that evening?
I ate the full seafood platter at Wakatsu.
Hey, me too.
If we
start prepping for the next midterms.
Exactly. We're not having it this week, but if it happens, if there is a full week where we do the same things, we have to wear the same outfit the next week or something, because that's just too perfect.
Agreed.
Anyway, yeah, simple and easy night.
Cool. Moving on, June 5th. This is the Friday, I believe. So Yukari tells us that we'll meet in the lounge of the dorm after school to discuss the findings like we agreed to with the ghost stuff. But what'd you do during the day?
Before I do that, I just want to note down, because again, in terms of like the side character notes, I think the scene is really cute in how much it displays Yukari is so invested in this.
Oh yeah, Junpei is like, wait, what? Did we agree to do something? And Yukari is ready to go. She's like, come on.
Yeah.
I've been doing this research all week. I've got nightmares from it.
She really holds on to this as like, we're going to make this happen. I appreciate the distinction in character types that we're getting as that happens.
Totally.
During the day, hung out with Kenji for rank 9, so I'm almost done.
Cool.
What about you?
I hung out with Bebe.
Nice.
I got him up to rank 3. And this was, again, because I didn't have Kenji available, and I was like, maybe he'll hang out with me on Sunday, and then I don't have to waste a weekday with him.
That's fair.
But I'm trying to balance focusing people with not wanting to waste too much time on in-between hangouts. I don't know. It's such a tricky thing.
It's tough because especially you have the weird weight, or like we both do to a certain degree, of we do want to be able to talk about those characters, so wasted time is a waste of content, baby. We need to keep the gears of the content mines turning. But on the other hand, you do want to play the game in a way that you're enjoying. So yeah, I get it.
Yeah. And then what about the evening? Oh wait, we get to the evening.
Yeah,
that's what happens.
Today's a really funny back and forth day where it's like story beat, but then you get free time. Story beat, but then you get free time. Yeah.
There was more free time than I was expecting. Honestly, There were a lot of moments where we'd get a cutscene and then. Or a conversation, and then it would just be like, okay, now what do you want to do?
If it skipped the day or the evening today, I honestly wouldn't have been shocked. But yeah, keeps on. We meet back up.
So yeah, the gang meets in the lounge of the dorm, that first floor area, and it's really just Junpei, Yukari, and you. And you discuss what you've learned. And as we talked about earlier, this is this sort of quiz-esque segment where Yukari has, I think it's just 2 questions of, so, the first one is about how did this rumor spread so quickly? It's been a week, basically, and it's all over the place. And the answer to that is because this didn't just happen to one girl, it happened to 3 different girls on consecutive nights, right? They went into the school at night and then were, comatose or whatever, knocked out the next morning, found at the school. You also discover, or I guess this is specifically Yukari discovers, or no, this is the other question, is what did they have in common? And it's that they all hung out together, and specifically they all hung out together at this really shady alley full of crooked characters. And so you decide, of course, naturally, to go check it out.
The most sane response, yeah.
Yeah. Of course. And I really like the motivation here, because it is a wild thing to do, and they don't tell Akihiko or Kirijo about it. And Yukari is basically just like, all we've been doing with this group so far is following orders. Other people tell us what to do and where to go and what to fight and yada, yada, yada. So she says, we got to start, thinking for ourselves and trying to figure this stuff out. And so let's just do this and not tell anybody and try to make progress. Which I think is just it's a perspective I hadn't considered, right? That maybe they don't like that they're just pawns so far.
I do. Yeah, it's showing you a deeper character dynamics than I think you might initially give the group credit for having. There's more moments later this week that also hint at some of those dynamics as well, very acutely in my mind. But yeah, I like that it indicates that there's, especially with the age difference, Akihiko and Mitsuru are closer because they've spent more time together. They know each other better. So there is this distance that's created. And as a result, it leads to us wanting to, it leads to us wanting to go off on our own, see if we can maybe solve this ourselves. And I like that a lot.
Yeah. And if you got both those questions right, you get a super awesome, valuable prize. It's
100,000 yen.
It's one soda.
It's
just a soda.
One fake Sierra Mist, which doesn't even exist anymore. It is fully a like retro thing because they got rid of that brand. It's fun.
Yeah. There you go. But then we get an evening. So what did you do with your evening?
I went to Wakatsu again because I didn't have much else available to me and was like, it was the full seafood platter again. So
sure.
Just went for it.
I ate ramen this time because I was trying to get charm up a little bit.
Good call.
I did not have enough courage yet to eat whatever this special meal is there. So it's nice to know about that or whatever.
What are your social stats at right now?
3, 3, and 3 right now.
Same. I, again, don't want to keep belaboring from the story stuff, but I think it's a really interesting thing where we are a month and a half into the story and our social stats are already all at 3. I don't remember the pace in Persona 5, but it feels really quick. It's just something I've noticed both runs.
Well, there's fewer of them.
Yes.
5 had 5 different things, whereas 3 only has 3. Does 4 have 4? I must know.
We'll find out. We're going to stop playing this and jump to 4 so we can find out. Stay tuned. No, I got to start playing that one at some point if we ever do that. But anyway, that's a future Jonathan worry.
So that was the 5th. Let's go to the 6th. And I think it just jumps right into it. This is just a Saturday.
Yeah,
and it just sort of says, "Hey, what do you want to do?"
I hung out with Chihiro. Got her to rank 2.
Hey, I hung out with Chihiro also and got to 4.
Nice. Yeah, I don't mean to be rude, but I neglected her for a little while you didn't. So I'm trying to catch back up there.
I like Chihiro.
It's a fun character dynamic.
Yeah. So we go back to the dorm after this free session, and Yukari and Junpei and you discuss going to this shady alley full of criminals. And I love this dynamic between Junpei and Yukari because Yukari was terrified of ghost stories, and Junpei kept making fun of her for it. And then as soon as we get to an actual real sort of danger situation, Junpei is terrified, and Yukari is just saying, "Let's go. Come on, let's do it right now. Let's go in there and beat people up."
Yukari is tough. I love it. She is this scene very clearly because everyone has fears, but when she is put into a stressful situation, she responds with like confidence and strength. And Junpei wants to turn around and run like a cartoon character through a wall and escape.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that she says something along the lines of how ghosts are scarier because you don't know, they're unknowable, whereas just like, a criminal is just a criminal, you can fight them.
Yeah, pretty much. Which I get. I respect that. Am I afraid of ghosts? Yes, but it's fine. I know how to fight them, so it all works out in the end.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you have to actually walk to the alley, which I thought was a nice detail, and I love that Junpei and Yukari follow you like you're in Tartarus. That's not a thing that, it's a very unexpected sort of little mechanic to follow you into the real world, so I enjoyed that. It tickled me.
It's cute. Yeah.
And you get to the shady alley, and immediately clear that you really, really should not be here, right? This is a bad place to be, and some dudes walk over to you immediately, and try to say, "Hey, get lost or we'll beat the crap out of you." And Junpei is scared as hell, but Yukari is just a badass standing up. But also, Yukari, maybe be a badass without just straight up insulting them to their face as much as you did.
She's strong and confident, but she doesn't necessarily have tact, I'll say.
Yeah.
It's and it's really funny because they go after Junpei immediately, like they're mocking his
they hit him in the gut.
Yeah, and
Yukari
then
gets Junpei hit in the gut.
Yeah, it's really funny, and then they're really skeevy to Yukari. Obviously, the whole sequence of events is very strange in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Luckily, though,
we're saved.
We are.
The guy from the other day shows up, as they call him, which is
wrote that down too. Yeah.
The dude in the hat and the coat from the hospital that knew Akihiko. He shows up and saves them
Headbutts a
one
dude.
of the dudes and then the dude gets up and it's like, "Do you want to fight?" And he just sort of looks at him. It's like, "Really, you want to do that?" And that guy runs away.
That's great.
He introduces himself as Shinjiro Aragaki.
What a name.
And is also a student at Shujin. Oh my god. Geoukkan. Excuse me, that was a genuine slip.
It's all good. Good.
Also student at Geoukkan. And basically says, hey, you should absolutely not be here, but is also really nice to them and tells them information because he guesses that they're looking for information about the ghost stories and the girls and all that, and is right.
It's a very sort of tough love, conveyance.
Well, he's not mean,
no.
Right? And that's the thing Yukari specifically says, is that he's intimidating, but he's also very kind, right? And he's not mean to them. He's just very frank about, you should not be here, and I'll help you while you're here, but go home.
Yeah. He even, he asked them if Akihiko told them to come here,
right.
Hinting at the ties there. So he genuinely cares about, how they ended up in this situation, but
yeah,
at the end of the day, he also is wanting them to just get the hell out of this terrible place.
So he reveals that all of the girls who were involved in this, who have gone catatonic or whatever, were bullying Yamagishi, who's the girl that we discovered has a persona or has the ability to go into the dark hour, a potential persona user, right? And most inflammatorily, she hasn't been home in a week. People think that she's just been at home sick, but actually she hasn't been there at all. And he says that she might be dead and that it's her ghost. So that's the big reveal of that thing. He also says some cryptic stuff where he says Aki is trying to make up for the past and can't let go, which is just sort of hinting at his relationship with Akihiko and something going on there, but I'm sure it'll never come up again.
No, I wouldn't worry about it. Definitely not foreshadowing anything in any way. The game hasn't tried to foreshadow anything, so I wouldn't worry. Just forget it. Forget it was ever said. And just move on with your life. Well, I love his character design. I think he's so cool. It's a very... Sure. I feel like he would fit in really well in Buffy the Vampire Slayer to a certain degree. He has the gruffness of almost a mix of Angel and Spike if I'm going down that route. But I just like his design. I think he's really... it's a really cool presence that feels very different from everyone else we've met so far.
Totally. I agree. I'm excited to meet him again whenever that comes up.
You won't. Don't worry about it.
He's on the menu screen.
He's not important. I wouldn't worry. You'll never see that character again. Or Fuka.
Sure.
Yeah. She never pops up again. Definitely not this week. Anyway, after that calamitous evening.
Yes, you get back. You can talk to Kirijo and Akihiko, who are basically don't do anything that's stupid ever again, but also good job.
It's really cute. I love it.
And then I literally wrote in my notes, "Oh, evening," because I thought that would be your whole evening, but you actually get an evening. So what did you do with your evening?
I went to Wild Duck because wanting to get my courage up. I've been neglecting it, so yeah.
I went to the arcade and I paid for the academics game, which was $3,000, and I was expecting it to give me 3 points, and it only gave me 2, and I'm bitter about it. Because I could go to Wakatsu for 2 points for 900.
But not if you're not charming enough. You wouldn't be able to get those 2.
But I am charming enough.
Well, you're rolling in money now. So, yeah.
These free-to-play, microtransaction heavy, just
what is the world
pay to win? I know. Anyway.
Classic gotcha games.
Yeah, that's the 6th. Moving on to the 7th, which is I think just a full Sunday. It's just a break. It's just a weekend.
Yeah, it's really funny. It's you had that major event day. There's a major event day the day after this. This is the most nothing day. It's just do your 2 things and get out of here.
It feels, because the next inciting incident is talking to a teacher, it feels like they just couldn't do this on a Sunday, and so they just held it to the Monday, right?
Yeah, it's also...
And then also the full moon stuff, they wanted that to line up.
Well, it's nice because it does give you a one final attempt. If you have not gone to Tartarus, here is your final chance to do it before the full moon.
Right. Sure. I hadn't considered that either. There's perfume on the shopping channel, which I think is a gift, which we haven't had any. Like, I bought those things from the Crane game. I still haven't been able to use them. One day.
Maybe.
And then we get some choices of special hangouts with certain people. If you're friends with them, you can also hang out with Maya. What'd you do today?
I hung out with Maya. I went for that one. Yeah.
I apparently said something Miyamoto doesn't like, so I hung out with him so that I could get some points to not have to hang out with him during the week.
Fair enough. I really like the thinking there. Obviously, it's not your friend, so the character is not thinking this, but the idea that you're like, I have to hang out with him today so that my next hangout with him is worthwhile is just such a funny, like, friendship cycle we've gotten into with them. But yeah, I get it.
This scene was funny. He said he's on a diet, so he's not eating rice, and so he makes you eat his rice in front of him as, like, endurance training to make him more resilient during his diet. So the other thing that is very important on this Sunday is everyone's summer Sunday outfits. This is the first time we've seen the whole team in their fancy summer outfits, when not uniform summer outfits, which is great.
Yeah.
They're all cute.
I love a good
They're
outfit
all
change.
cutie pies in tank tops.
Yes. Yeah. It's very cute. Also, I apologize in advance for video viewers for my changing lights, but it was making me look sickly. So here we go. Yeah. New outfits, always a good time.
Kirijo mentions that she wants your help tomorrow. Obviously, that's standard, right? Or expected because it's the full moon. So she says, help me figure out this whole situation, because a student being missing and not being reported in the school saying that she's not missing is bad. So help me figure that out. And then what'd you do during the evening?
Again, this week is pretty boring for me outside the story. I just went and ate at Wakatsu.
I did again this week too.
Perfect.
It's a cheap way to get to academics. It's really good.
It's amazing. I don't think I took enough advantage of it on my first run, to be honest, and now I'm feeling the regret of that. So I'm trying to make up for it here. Yeah.
Or you could spend $10,000 to get 3 points.
Maybe.
The fact that it's random is so mean.
Oh yeah, but it's kind of fun in that way because you take a chance. But yeah, I don't do that. I just don't do that.
Fun.
Anyway,
moving on to the final day, the 8th. This is the full moon day, and you meet in the staff room at lunch. And Kirijo's already there with the teacher and the person who was previously called Brunette Girl, who we saw bullying, or not bullying, talking about bullying before her friend sort of heard her voice and walked off all mysteriously, which now we kind of have pieced together what all that was. So the brunette is in there with the teacher freaking out, right? Saying she never thought it would turn out this way. She's crying. She's so sad. And basically what she explains happened is that they locked Fuka in the gym overnight as like a bullying thing. They just locked her in the gym. And I was thinking about that, and I was like, oh, that's not that bad. And I was like, oh, Dark Hour. And she's a Persona user, so she's in Tartarus right now, which is a wild, cool thing to think about. Just a really great plot point. Really great idea.
It's really great to connect because it is also a thing where you are starting to get ahead of where, like, you're obviously ahead of where Moriyama, I believe her name is. You're ahead of where she is at that point. Yeah. But also I think very quickly you see it in this scene, like, without getting too far ahead, like Mitsuru instantly kind of picks up on that, which is great.
Yeah. So she explains that each night after that, one of them would try to go and check on her and then would wake up knocked unconscious in the middle of the night, or in the morning, whatever. Wouldn't wake up. They'd be found unconscious. And then this is the point I alluded to earlier in the episode. Kirijo just unloads on Mystery Coda for not reporting a missing student, for the guy says it's the best interest of everybody. Her parents knew about it, I guess, that he didn't report this and didn't want to, cast a shadow over everyone else and impact people's permanent records, yada, all that sort of stuff. But really just covering his own tracks is what Kirijo says. And my favorite part of this, and this is again alongside that bodyguard thing, giving me a sense of how important she is and how much power she has even in the school where she's a student. She dismisses the teacher and then says to him, "Don't worry, this won't be the last you hear of this." Which is like, oh man, she is holding him accountable.
What a badass.
Yeah, it rules.
Yeah, it's great. I really like the group that we have, but I think there's the layers they start to show with Mitsuru here are really, really great in
totally
building out that character. Yeah.
Yeah. The other little reveal here, or not little, is that specifically the girls who got drawn in would hear their name. So shadows are calling specific people's names and drawing them into the dark hour before they make them all apathy syndromed. And so they establish, I think they say something pretty melodramatic along the lines of shadows are truly the enemies of mankind or whatever.
I wrote that down. It's pretty much exactly that. It's done so. I think it's Mitsuru who's like, we can say this with absolute certainty. Shadows are the enemy of mankind. It's like, oh, okay. Whew.
Yeah. And establishing that these are higher stakes, right? That these shadows are trying to destroy us very targetedly. It is not some sort of random thing. And you decide to go rescue her after school, from the school. You then meet up again. This whole day is just like a series of meetups at different locations. So you go and meet at the student council room after school, and this is where they do the reveal that, oh my god, she's been locked in Tartarus for 10 days. But Akihiko thinks that time flows differently in Tartarus because it goes away. So maybe she's only been in there for 10 hours, right? Because that's 10 dark hours, and then it doesn't exist otherwise. So still terrible because
still a long time.
1 hour. Yeah, 1 hour makes them exhausted in the dark hour, but at least not 10 days.
Yeah, a little bit better. But also one of those things where that's the difference between her being maybe a little bit hungry and her being starved too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. Junpei and Yukari are really doubtful about whether they can actually do anything or save her, and Aki gets really mad at them and basically is like, so we're just going to give up, and gets this ties into, I think, that trying to right the wrongs of his past or whatever. He's very passionate about saving this person. And they decide that the best way to do that is to go to the gym and at night and wait for the dark hour to click over so that they can potentially go to wherever she ended up, right? And yeah, that's the plan. And they just have to sneak into the school, which thankfully Junpei knows how to do.
Of course. Yeah, to your point, I think it's a little funny. This whole section is really interesting in terms of they're doing a thing, they talk about how they're going to go do a thing, and then it just immediately jumps to doing that thing. It's a little bit of like a weird sort of stilted day to get you there, but it's all, I think, really good character dynamic and information doling out.
Yeah, it's also, it would have felt more like exposition, because there's another scene, right? They're at the command center after this, and Kirijo is calling Ikutsuki, calling the chairman, and he isn't answering. And she says, this is the only way I'll be able to get into the schools if we have him. And Junpei says, no, I left a door unlocked, basically. And that allows them to sneak back in because he had left a specific door unlocked for them. But yeah, and then they actually go to the school after that. And so there's 4 different locations before you actually get control again in the school for this key searching scene. And I kind of like that because if this was all just one spot, it would feel a lot more like a wall of exposition. Because they've broken it up. Yeah, because they've broken it up, it's a little bit more engaging as it feels like there's a time pressure and time passing between each scene.
Yeah, I will say, not to like jump too far into things, but I think it's a pretty simple scene. The thing I like the least about it is honestly the key hunting scene. I think that is the least necessary scene, because it essentially just has you run down a hall, open a door, and then click an interactable moment. That sort of feels a little bit wasted. It
could have been so much worse, couldn't it have?
Oh, I know. That's the really funny thing, is when they set up that a flashlight sees you. I'm sure you had a similar reaction, where my first thought was, oh no, a stealth sequence.
Oh, stealth sections in games that are not stealth games are the worst.
Yeah, I got so
scared.
Prepared. And thank God it's not.
Yeah.
You just run down the hall. Whoever had that flashlight isn't bothering you. I really did think at a certain point, if you dilly-dallied maybe too long, you'll hear like a, hey kids, and then you have to run. But no, you just go.
Yeah. So this is them searching for the gym key. You and Yukari find it in the student or the staff room, I think. And it's a pretty straightforward sort of thing. There are two moments right before you split off where first they speak, Akihiko and Kirijo speak French, and it confuses everyone, including myself, which I thought was cute. And then also, before they go to the staff room, Junpei jokes about maybe he'll go to the staff room and look for test answers, and Akihiko makes some joke about how it could be interesting. And Kirijo says that if they did anything immoral while she was with them, they would need to be executed? Just go straight to that?
Pubescent boy wasn't wrong.
Yeah, it's true. She'd do it herself, though. That's why he was wrong.
Yeah.
So you get the key. There's not a stealth section. And you have to have a party where Kirijo is staying behind, and so someone needs to stay with Kirijo, which immediately to me made me think that Fuka was going to be a party member and we needed a fourth slot open, is why we only had 3 people. But that's not exactly how it plays out. And it's going to be Yukari, but then in your party, but then Junpei, which I really like this moment, Junpei admits that he screwed up on the train and wants a chance to redeem himself. He wants a chance to prove that he can go into a high pressure situation like this and not totally botch the job.
Yeah, it's good. Again, character dynamic building here. I think they're laying a lot of great groundwork with this team, and this works really well. In particular there, I think you then, as the scene keeps going, you get a little bit more of what I was alluding to earlier, where Yukari seems a little hesitant to then stay behind with Mitsuru. We don't really dive into that, but there's a little bit of hesitancy there. But
yeah. And then the dark hour happens. Ooh. So you get a little cutscene right at the beginning of the dark hour of the brunette girl who has been, you let hide back at your dorm, hearing her name and getting called sort of hypnotically towards the school in the way that the other people were. It also, you reveal that you got separated, so you don't know where anybody else is, and you're up in the middle of Tartarus on that second area. And on top of that, Kirijo's only barely in transmission range, so she can't really communicate with you very well. And on top of that, Prison Boy shows up.
Our favorite little wonderful messenger.
Hey, it's good to see you.
Great. What else is going on?
Yeah. So he basically says she's waiting for you. You'll need her, and also points out that this is the first time they've talked outside of the dorm, which is interesting. So he can show up sort of anywhere. But then it's go time. So you've got 2 floors of Tartarus where it's just you as the protagonist fighting, but thankfully all of the shadows are exceptionally easy. You're not in any risk. There's not much fighting. Or not much strategy to the fighting. You just sort of auto attack and it's fine. But that's not really the point of it. It's okay, right, that it's very simple, these 2 floors, because really more you're hearing Kirijo break up, and you're also hearing Fuka in your head a little bit as well, looking for help or whatever. And finally on the 3rd floor, you meet back up with Junpei and Aki, and Fuka is right there, hiding right next to you, so you've found her.
I wrote specifically that she is hiding behind one of the weird little gross, like, statuesque things that you run into in this section of Tartarus, and it's just like, I hope she just hasn't been sitting on these things this whole time, because it's a gross area.
Yeah. And she mentions actually that she's been avoiding the shadows because she can sort of tell where they are, which Aki points out is kind of similar to Mitsuru's power, Takurijo's power somewhat. And then he hands her a gun, and she freaks out because she's been handed a gun.
Just immediately.
That's totally normal reaction if someone hands you a gun, if you're just like, oh, what? Why are you handing me a gun right now?
I just love that he's like, hey, you might need this gun.
Yeah.
Okay. Sure.
Yeah, he does explain that it's not a real gun. It doesn't have bullets in it or whatever, but yeah, very funny that they still have not explained what evokers are.
But hey, she has one. She's here. She's safe. It's all working out great.
We then get a conversation where there's suddenly a giant window, and you can see the gigantic moon through it, and Junpei comments on that. And this is where Akihiko and you piece together that all three of these big shadow events have been on full moons, and that there is some connection there, and that some bad thing happens with the moons there. So that's good that they finally realized that in-game as well.
Yeah, I know we've been speaking about it pretty plainly on the show. That's a little bit on me, but also there is a moon phase day, like every day there. It's pretty clearly a part of the game, but it's nice to have them catch up.
Yeah, exactly. Then there's, I think it's Fuka has a sense that there's a giant shadow all of a sudden and that it is attacking someone. So you rush back to the lobby and you find Kirijo and Yukari have been knocked down. Her fancy bike is broken, and there are two giant shadows there, not just one, fighting them. And Kirijo says that normal attacks don't work on them, and they are, I believe they're called Emperor and Empress, and they sort of look like knights, right? Armored knights. One is a king with a crown on, and the other is a queen with boob physics for some reason. It's just like they just had to throw that in there, but that's fine. They're cool designs, right? They're these really cool shadow. They feel almost like Kingdom Hearts enemies in their design.
They feel like the king and queen Heartless you would get to at the end of like Alice in Wonderland. It's very They feel of a piece.
Very animated, very what's the word? They're not just sort of statuesque. They have a lot of liveliness to them in their design and their movement, which I really liked. And then, at that same time, as you're about to face these people, that brunette student shows up and is walking towards them. And oh no, she's gonna get attacked. And then we get an awakening cutscene, which I love because we haven't had one of these in a while. We haven't had one since the very beginning of the game.
Yeah. They're few and far between right now, but it's a good one. I love the design of Fuka's persona. I think it's really cool for what her ability is. And, obviously it forms. And the fact that she's standing with her friend, so her and the friend are kind of contained within like the bubbled body dress of her persona is just a really smart, clever design choice. I really love it.
It's a great image. It's a really cool design, like you said, for a support character to literally be having their persona shielding her is super cool. And she mentions that she can see their weaknesses. And this is where we get into, okay, so I liked this boss fight. It also did feel more like a tutorial than a full boss fight.
If I may, from the Patreon. Over at patreon.com/takeyourtime, Shade commented about this episode and asked, how do you feel about this boss fight being a glorified tutorial? Just to give their comment, they said, honestly, it is indicative of one of my bigger problems with the game, my being Shade, not me. I personally don't like how aimless the first 2 months feel, and I think this is exacerbated by how boring I find the first two boss fights. The full moon feel like they are supposed to be exciting events that break up the day-to-day gameplay, but having the actual gameplay of them be a DPS check for the first boss and a tutorial for the second boss undermines them in my opinion. So I want to hear from you.
Totally agree largely. It is disappointing that the first two bosses are both very simple, right? Except this is barely a boss fight. You're just sort of learning about these really cool, by the way, support ability that Fuka has, where you can just use her magic, her SP, to fully reveal the weaknesses of an enemy. That rules. I'm excited to see where that goes. I'm excited to see how she's incorporated, if she's a fighter, if she's just following you like Futaba was. I don't know. I just am excited to see how this works and how that mechanic works.
Yeah.
But I do agree, it is a little bit of a bummer. The reason that the fight itself, not that it's a bad fight, just that it's like, it's not a real boss fight, right? It is really just sort of a tutorial of find out their weaknesses, use the weaknesses, yada, yada, yada. The thing I will say is this whole sequence, and we can talk about this more, I guess, in a sec, but including this fight, I enjoyed a lot more, because I do agree that the first 2 months feel a little aimless so far, but this felt like this sort of, we had a week and a half of lead up to this moment, and we had moments of the team working together during the week and talking about their plans and checking in with each other, and then we built up to this big story moment, and everything is tied into what we're doing, and we could save in the middle of it, which was cool. And then you get this fight where you have this big explosive persona awakening. There's just, it thematically worked so much better to me, where, Jonathan, you said this at the beginning, the stakes are lower. You're not all about to die on a train, right? But also it feels more personal, and it feels more, I was way more engaged in what was happening, and I cared a lot more. And I feel like they can't just ignore what's going to happen, whereas the train sequence, people just never talked about. Like, NPCs in passing mentioned it, but you just never talked about the train again. Whereas this, I feel like, is actually going to matter to the story.
I think to your point, the momentum that leads up to this works way better. It is this interesting thing where, like, I totally get, and to a, like, on a macro level, kind of agree with where Shade is coming from, because I think it is somewhat intentional, though, even if it doesn't then make for the most connective sequence of events. Like, to your point, I think this makes you feel more attached to what's going on than the train sequence did. But as we were just pointing out, the characters themselves just put together that the full moons are when these things are happening. So for them, that is a big moment of realization here. And I think they are now all of a sudden going to care that that's what's happening here. Whereas the other thing, right. Also to the extent of, like, they just kind of made the indication of, oh, shadows are specifically intending to hurt mankind. This isn't just a wacky, oops, they're just hurting people by accident. Like, no, there's intention to this. That's all just discovered here. And I think, again, you could argue maybe some of that should have been revealed on the first full moon that you engaged with on the train, just to help give it some more importance. But I do think it is intentionally slow in that build up, and whether or not that works for you, I think is a very fair criticism. But I like here, to your point, even if the boss fight isn't that dynamic, the emotional heart of it is. And I do really like that.
Yeah, I agree generally. And it's a good question and a good comment, because it is, again, this fight is very straightforward also.
Yeah, it is just teaching you how to use this Fuka ability, which, granted, you would hope a boss fight is intended to really test your skills, to make you feel like you're learning, you've mastered the systems. This is teaching you how to use a system completely. So yeah. I get that. Yeah.
So you defeat these bosses, and then Fuka and this girl reconnect, and she's apologizing like crazy. She's so sad. The gang talks about how she won't remember any of this, but she's probably learned her lesson, right? And everyone is very happy, and Fuka passes out. And then that's basically it. She just talks about how she's exhausted. She'll just need some time to rest, and then you leave, and that's the day.
Yeah. And
we'll have to talk about the fallout of that and what happens after it, or if everyone just moves on and doesn't talk about it, and we'll see.
We never hear from Fuka again. I was just going to say, I'd like, just to kind of finalize on that point of the importance of it and where it matters here. outside of that first night where you save Yukari and you have that like rooftop battle, this is the first real time we're getting like a Junpei just kind of shows up at the dorm one day and is like, oh, he's part of the team now. He's a Persona user. Akihiko was already a Persona user, so he's just back into the fold. This is really the first time where you are getting like here is a character being introduced to the team, given a role of importance. Something is different happening here. I really like that it sets up something that feels like it's been missing a little, having had a Persona experience, that I like those introductions. I like that we get that here, and I do think it's a very effective one.
Well, and to the point Shade made of this first 2 months feeling a little slower is this does, we touched on this already. This feels like, stuff is starting to be built. We're building a team. We're introducing people. We're figuring out the specifics of what's going on more. And that's exciting to me. It's exciting. That makes this whole day much more effective to me than the other full moon, where the other full moon almost sort of felt like I don't know. I don't know what its purpose it really served besides sort of just a first full challenge for the team. And then we moved on, and now this actually feels like story stuff. And I'm really, really, it's got me really excited to see what's comes
Good.
next, right?
I'm glad. Yeah, I mean, like, if you think about it, it's like we got an enemy motive, we got a cadence to the story, and we got a new, very important, clearly party member because of a new ability no one else has had. So it's instantly on a level that just that first full moon wasn't. The first, and I should say, playable full moon.
Maybe an ability that can support Kirijo, the problem she's currently having of the ranged thing, right? So it's smart. It's just smart how they've seeded it all in and how it built up to this sort of these reveals. So I'm excited.
Yeah,
but that's all we've got for this week.
It's a fun one. I'm really excited to hear from. I know, as I said, we're recording a little bit earlier this week, so I'd love to hear from more people about how they felt about this sequence as well. And we'll try to include some next week. But
yeah, that's what we got. Next week we'll be going over June 9th to 15th. But I think do we have any questions left, or did we hit them in the middle of the show?
So we hit them all pretty much in the middle of the show. Again, I'm saving one from last week for a future week because we had so much to talk about this week, and when we have a lighter week, I think it will still make sense to work. The one comment I just want to read, because we had a discussion last week of like, you were mentioning how there isn't the deadline impetus for Tartarus as there would for going into palaces. I did enjoy, though, just Dexter in the Patreon replied, the incentive to finish Tartarus as fast as possible is to get more money, which fair for where we've been, I can't blame
actually
that
I have money right now.
Same.
I mean, I don't think it'll last, but I have like 30K after having bought the items I needed before this section.
Yeah.
And I'm about to spend all of that again, I'm sure, but it's, I don't feel terrible right now, which is the first time I've not felt terrible about my money all game.
No, it's nice. It's a nice feeling. Hold on to it while you can.
Yeah, exactly. Well, if that's it, let's end with our pop quiz. All right, I've got a weird one. If you haven't unlocked Suemitsu yet, maybe go do that so that you can guess on this pop quiz. One of the things I really like is the texts you get from people when they want to hang out. And there's some weird ones. And they sort of have weird fun with them because they're so short. And I think they assume probably most people don't even really read the text very carefully. So Suemitsu, I don't know if this is the first text he sent me after I unlocked him. It might be, or it's close to. But when he texts you to hang out, he welcomes you to something. And he says, welcome to da-da-da-da-da. What does he welcome you to? Because it's a weird one. This dude's weird. My opinion of him being kind of weird and lame has not changed yet.
We'll keep following that story. We will. But yeah, I think I remember what this is, but yeah. If people out there know.
I haven't been hanging out with him because he seems like he's available a lot more frequently than the other people.
I don't know. I honestly don't remember if he gets cut off in the same way other students do because he's technically not in the school. But you've got time. I actually didn't do most of my hangouts with him until the final couple months of the game. Yeah.
Bonus points for this one, because I just looked it up to get the exact thing. The actual sentence is, welcome to the blank, and it's kind of a little phrase, won't you join me? And if you can want bonus points, also tell me the subject line of that text message, because the subject line of the text message is also very, very good. Anyway, that's all we've got. If you want to send us your answers, you can do so at youtube.com/Dornology, patreon.com/takeyourtime. He's at JM Dornbush on stuff. I'm at Tom R. Marks. You can go email us at dornology@gmail.com. There's probably some other places too. If you're enjoying the show, subscribe to wherever you are. Thumbs up, rate us well. We appreciate it. It helps us more people find the show.
Smash that like button.
Do that, I guess, if you like it.
Ring the bell.
Don't ring the bell. Don't ring the bell.
Lock
I'm telling
the
you not
gates.
to ring the bell. I don't ring the bell. I don't ring the bell for anybody, but also I don't use YouTube notifications. I just like look at my subscription feed. Anyway, this is neither here nor there. If you really like what we're doing, takeyourtime.com or patreon.com/takeyourtime. One day I'll get those in the right order on the first try.
Takeyourtime.com/Patreon.
Yeah,
if I was paying for a web domain, that's what it would be, but I'm not. But we could,
obviously. Yes, exactly. Obviously, if you don't have to, we love your company regardless. But if you do want to fund our domain name purchase, you can do so over there at that website I just said. But in the meantime, June 9th to June 15th is what we're playing next, and we'll see what happens after this big night. Jonathan, you got anything else for the good people out there?
No, I don't. I just hope everyone's doing well. I'm excited where we're going from here. I'm glad to hear that you're feeling that, because I'm glad.
Not to belabor it in the outro, but it feels like we're finally it feels like the story is starting, right? It feels like things are starting to really kick off in a more substantial way, and I'm pumped. But we'll have to see. Have to see next week. Thanks everyone for watching or listening or whatever. See you next time.